She landed on the planet like a dropped suitcase, except the suitcase had better survival instincts. Sweat clung to her forehead, her hair plastered against the back of her neck, and every nerve screamed that the aliens who dumped her here had a sick sense of humor. They said the planet bonds with those who arrive, which she assumed meant metaphorically. She was wrong. Very wrong. The air smelled sharp, like iron and wet soil, and the ground beneath her vibrated faintly, as if the planet itself were a heartbeat. Each step made the soil pulse, making her ankles tingle in an oddly suggestive way. She yelped, thinking a predator was near, but nothing moved except the grass, bending as if leaning in to watch her struggle. She muttered curses at the aliens, the universe, and her own luck, and the plants seemed to shiver in response. "This is ridiculous," she said aloud, her voice cracking. "I am literally about to be eaten by what? Nature with feelings?" The ground responded with a subtle vibration, almost like laughter. Leaves brushed her arms when she moved, curling around her sleeves as though inspecting the material. She swatted at them. "Back off. I'm not here for a cuddle." A vine slithered past her ankle, coiling like a curious cat. She stomped on it. It recoiled, only to slither closer when she turned her back. "Okay, seriously, what is wrong with this planet?" Her voice rose, frustration and disbelief tangled with the adrenaline of being stranded. The jungle seemed to lean in, leaves brushing her legs like the planet itself was trying to provoke a reaction. The warnings had been clear. Stay calm. Emotional outbursts are dangerous here. But how was she supposed to stay calm when the ground tickled her feet and the plants followed her like an overzealous puppy? Her heartbeat raced, which made the soil pulse harder. She flinched. The jungle shivered, branches flexing toward her in anticipation, and she realized the warnings had not been a joke. The planet reacted. Every frustrated growl she let out made it twitch. Every irritated stomp made the vines shift. She swore again, louder this time, and the response was immediate. A cluster of vines sprang up toward her shoulder, brushing across her back in a way that made her squeal. She twisted away, knocking a nearby shrub over. It righted itself, upright and rigid as though offended. The universe was laughing at her, she decided, and it was a very cruel universe indeed. Her attention snapped to movement behind her. "Hey, don't scream. They like that." The voice was casual, almost bored, yet distinctly human. She spun, expecting a predator or some alien horror, and froze. Standing there, slightly hunched, wearing a half-torn shirt and a makeshift tool belt, was a man. Disheveled, scarred, and absurdly confident for someone who had apparently survived months alone on this psychotic planet. She stared at him. You're human." Her voice was disbelief tinged with panic. "You've been here." "Yeah." He waved a hand vaguely toward the chaotic greenery. "Months. Not that it's much, but you adapt. You survive. Mostly. And you," he gestured at her. "Well, you're about to find out why it's called a bonding planet." Her brows knitted. "Bonding planet? You mean friendly? Depends on your definition." His lips curved slightly, knowingly, like he had a story too awkward to tell. "If you breathe too fast, the vines think you're inviting them. Don't ask me how I know. Actually, maybe do ask, but maybe not." She blinked, unsure whether to panic or laugh. "You've survived months by what? Talking to the plants." He smirked. "Partly. Mostly by not screaming like an idiot. Works every time, usually." He took a cautious step closer. "Also, a lot of improvisation. Fruit that moans when picked. Roots that hug back. Leaves that, never mind. Just don't freak out." She looked down. One of the vines had curled around her ankle again, just slightly, and shivered. She yanked her foot away. "Oh my God, it's alive. All of it is alive. And judging me." "Judging? No," he said, ducking under a low branch that twitched toward his hair. "They just notice. React. They're sensitive. Very sensitive. If you're stressed, they'll get excited." Her eyes widened. "Excited?" He coughed awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. Yeah, in a planety way. Not that way. Well, maybe that way. Hard to say. It's complicated. She narrowed her eyes, heart racing. Complicated, huh? Complicated is one word for it, he said, glancing at a leaf that curled toward him in a very deliberate manner. Terrifying is another. She stepped back, surveying the forest with renewed wariness. Every leaf, every vine seemed to pulse in response to her heightened heartbeat. Every step she took made the jungle flex as if stretching for attention. She let out a long, frustrated sigh. Okay. I expected monsters. I expected death. I did not expect a human and a planet that's emotionally invested in my panic. He raised a hand. Relax. They're harmless if you're careful. Mostly. And me? I'm harmless too. Sort of. But mostly harmless. She crossed her arms. Mostly? That's comforting. He shrugged. Trust me, in this place, mostly is good enough. You'll learn. The vines shivered again, brushing against her hips as if testing her reaction. She jumped back, glaring. Stop touching me. He grinned. See? Reaction. Already interacting. They approve of that response. She muttered under her breath. This is insane. Welcome to survival, he said with mock solemnity, glancing around the twitching greenery. Totally survival. Totally not, well, you'll see. Her pulse raced, part from fear, part from sheer absurdity. The jungle responded to it all. Every insult, every stomp, every flinch. And now, standing there, realizing she wasn't alone, she felt a weird, reluctant relief. Survival just got complicated. And she had a partner. He extended a hand. Names, well, you don't need it. Just know I've been here long enough to figure out the rules. Follow me if you want to live. She hesitated, then shook his hand, ignoring the way a vine curled around her wrist like it was personally invested in the handshake. And somewhere deep in the jungle, a plant seemed to hum with approval. He gestured toward a narrow path winding through the pulsing greenery, as if leading her to a mundane campsite, but every step felt like walking through a live performance of chaos. Rule 1, he said, brushing a vine out of the way, don't panic. Rule 2, don't scream. Rule 3, don't breathe too fast. He glanced at her, raising one eyebrow. Everything else is optional, mostly. She stopped and blinked. Don't breathe too fast? You mean the plants? They read emotions. They react. Fast breathing equals panic equals trouble, he interrupted. Trust me, I learned the hard way. He waved vaguely toward a thicket, where a vine quivered, seemingly laughing. Some things are better left unprovoked. She adjusted her pack and glared. Right. So I'm supposed to survive by walking slowly and meditating like a hippie while the jungle watches my every move. Pretty much. He smirked. Also, humor helps. The planet loves irony. She rolled her eyes but couldn't help a snort. Fantastic. I'm going to die laughing, then eaten. They walked in silence for a few minutes, the jungle subtly leaning toward them. Every step made the ground pulse faintly, vines stretching and recoiling as if testing their reactions. A low hum ran through the air, vibrating her teeth slightly. She stomped once, annoyed. A vine twitched toward her foot. She yelped, and he chuckled. You're adorable when panicked, he said, shaking his head. Almost makes me forget I've been alone for months. Alone? You've been talking to vines for months. He shrugged. They listen better than humans. And they never argue unless you get greedy with the fruit. She frowned. Fruit that argues? He grinned. Well, it squeaks, moans, occasionally tries to pinch. Consider it interactive produce. He picked up a glowing orange fruit and held it out. Touch it. But be gentle. The planet notices when you're rough. She hesitated. Gentle? It's a fruit. Everything's alive. Everything's sensitive. That's why you breathe slow, walk slow, and, most importantly, stay calm. Stay calm, she muttered. Got it. She took a careful bite. The fruit vibrated softly in her hand, humming a low note. She jumped. It's singing. He grinned. It likes you. You didn't crush it. That's approval. She rolled her eyes, muttering, Sure, it's approval for now. Minutes passed. The air thickened, pulsing with anticipation. Her heartbeat quickened, not from fear, exactly, but from the absurdity of the situation. She glanced at him. He noticed. Match your breathing with me, he said casually. Excuse me. Match it. 1, 2, slow. Deeper. Steady. Trust me. It works. Her eyes narrowed, but the vines had started creeping closer, sensing her hesitation. With a resigned sigh, she mirrored his rhythm. Inhale, exhale, slow, steady. The jungle softened immediately, vines retreating, leaves lifting as if in approval. She blinked at him. What just happened? Planet, calm down, he said with a grin. Emotions sink. Works every time. Totally safe. Totally not intimate. You're welcome. She narrowed her eyes, but a small smirk tugged at her lips. Right. Totally not intimate. Sure. He led her further into the thicket. The vines seemed to clear a path, brushing past her legs like polite couriers. See, he said. You cooperate, they cooperate. Simple survival. She glanced around warily. And if I freak out again? Bad things happen. Not fatal, but uncomfortable. He winked. For you. She groaned. You're enjoying this way too much. He shrugged. I've been alone for months. This is my entertainment. A low hum resonated through the jungle. She frowned. Is that the planet laughing? Maybe, he said, grinning. Or maybe it's warning us. Or maybe it wants a dance. Hard to tell. It's sensitive. She muttered under her breath, a dance? I swear to God. He laughed. Relax. Keep your cool. And walk with me. Slowly. Don't look around too much. The plants get jealous. Jealous? Emotionally invested, he corrected. You'll see. Everything here has opinions. They walked, carefully syncing steps, matching breathing, and occasionally swatting away overly curious vines. The jungle pulsed and twitched with their combined emotions, as if monitoring a delicate balance. She had to admit, despite her fear and irritation, the absurdity was entertaining. All right, genius, she said after a while. How long until I get to your shelter? Depends how cooperative you are, he said casually. And how many times you blush when the vines get handsy. She stopped. Excuse me? Handsy. He waved a vine that had looped around her wrist. Friendly. Maybe a little clingy. They notice emotional responses. Quick heartbeat, flustered tone, they respond accordingly. She yanked her wrist free. This planet is insane. Absolutely insane. Mostly harmless, he said, grinning. Trust me. Mostly harmless. A cluster of vines suddenly quivered at their feet, wriggling upward, nudging them forward like impatient guides. She stumbled slightly, hitting his shoulder. He caught her. Their movements synced accidentally, and the vines recoiled slightly in approval. See, he whispered. Working together already. Cooperation is key. She narrowed her eyes but suppressed a laugh. Fine. Cooperation. For survival. Not for whatever that was. Totally survival, he said with mock seriousness. Totally not, well, you'll figure it out. The jungle responded to their rhythm as they continued. Leaves brushed their shoulders, vines coiled gently around ankles and arms, and every pulse of the ground felt like a heartbeat in time with theirs. They moved, breathed, and argued just enough to keep things interesting. She muttered, I came here to die. Instead I have a jungle babysitter, a sarcastic human guide, and a fruit orchestra. Exactly, he said, smirking. Welcome to surviving the forbidden planet. Total chaos. Total fun. Total, not what you expected. She groaned but couldn't help the small smile creeping onto her face. The planet seemed to approve, humming softly as if nodding. She sighed, realizing she was going to have to trust him, because her survival, her sanity, and possibly her dignity, depended on it. And the vines, already leaning toward her, seemed to agree. They arrived at his shelter, a massive living tree that hummed with quiet satisfaction as if it recognized a returned visitor. Vines twisted upward, forming furniture that seemed to mold itself to their shapes, chairs wrapping subtly around hips and shoulders in a way that made her raise an eyebrow. He waved at the seating arrangements, muttering, "They're just friendly." "Friendly?" she echoed, carefully sitting as the chair coiled slightly around her waist. "That's friendly." He shrugged, grinning. "Welcome to the planet's definition of hospitality. Nothing rude, just attentive." She muttered under her breath, adjusting her pack. "Attentive. Sure." He led her inside, pointing out the survival modifications he'd made over months. Glowing fruit lined the walls, pulsating gently. A vine hammock swayed slowly above, adjusting as if it knew when someone wanted comfort. Tools hung on flexible branches, perfectly balanced. Each item had been repurposed from the ecosystem, yet each reacted to touch and emotion with startling sensitivity. She reached for a small pouch and jumped as it vibrated in her hand, humming softly. "It's alive," she whispered, staring at him. He smirked. "Yeah. Don't freak out. You get used to it." She narrowed her eyes, muttering, "Used to it, sure." They moved deeper into the tree, examining food storage and water purification systems he'd cobbled from bioluminescent fungi and living root. He demonstrated a fruit that squirmed when picked roughly and sang when handled properly. She raised an eyebrow. "This is ridiculous. A singing fruit?" "Interactive," he corrected. "The planet likes engagement." He handed her one carefully. "Gentle. Always gentle. They notice." She took a careful bite, the fruit humming a low, approving tone. The vine furniture flexed lightly as if nudging her to relax. She exhaled, realizing she had to cooperate or risk a cascade of subtle but inconvenient reactions. "Now," he said, brushing a strand of hair from his face, "Lesson 2, emotional sync. You breathe, they breathe. You stay calm, they stay calm. Fail, and minor embarrassment, maybe some smacking vines." "Minor embarrassment?" she repeated, staring at a leaf that quivered near his shoulder. "Minor," he said airily. "For the planet. You might find it stimulating." She rolled her eyes. "Of course. Everything here is slightly perverted. Even the furniture." He laughed, reaching to pick up a glowing mushroom from the floor. It pulsed and squeaked as he lifted it. They respond to tone, pitch, pressure. Not just humans, everything. This is the jungle version of dating etiquette. Mostly harmless, mostly annoying. She tried not to snort. "Mostly harmless, like you." "Exactly," he said, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "The rest of the planet? Deadly, opinionated, and very touchy-feely." A low hum ran through the shelter as a vine nudged her shoulder gently, responding to her rising pulse. She yanked back, glaring. "Stop it!" He stifled a laugh. "See? Already interacting. Cooperation is key. And humor, always humor, helps the plants adjust." They moved through the shelter, checking storage areas and improvised tools. She noticed the vines nudging him subtly, curling around his wrist like curious fingers. "Does your furniture flirt with you?" she asked. "Apparently," he said, ducking under a leaf. "They're very particular. They react to emotional frequencies. Heartbeat, tone of voice, subtle movement. They notice tension, desire, confusion." She raised an eyebrow. "Desire? You're joking." "Mostly," he said, grinning. "But maybe not entirely." She muttered under her breath, "This planet is insane. Absolutely insane." He held up a small vine with a knot tied in the middle. "This is your first lesson in handling attention. Be gentle. They respond better to soft touch. Harshness makes them squirm. Emotionally and physically." She blinked. "Physically? Are you serious?" "Mostly harmless," he repeated, eyes twinkling. For the planet. You might enjoy the lessons. Eventually. Maybe. She shook her head, exasperated but secretly intrigued. Every plant, fruit, and piece of furniture seemed to hum in response to their combined emotional state. It was absurd, it was annoying, and somehow it was teaching her patience, observation, and, unwittingly, coordination. They paused near a vine hammock swaying gently. Lesson 3, he said, walking together. Coordination. Emotional alignment. Step too fast, ground pulses. Panic too much, vines, well, they'll remind you. She sighed. Remind me how? He leaned close, lowering his voice. Playfully. Sometimes persistently. Depends on your reactions. Her cheeks heated slightly, and she shot him a glare. You're enjoying this way too much. I've been alone too long, he admitted. It's entertaining to see someone adapt. She groaned, moving into the hammock. The vines shifted subtly, wrapping and adjusting around her hips and back, making her stiffen. Okay, she muttered, I'm calm. Totally calm. Good, he said, watching her carefully. Now, minor test. Step closer, breathe slow. Match rhythm. She hesitated, then carefully mirrored his breathing. Inhale, exhale, slow, steady. The jungle responded immediately, leaves lifting, roots relaxing. Even the air seemed to sigh in approval. See, he whispered. Coordination. Harmony. Emotional sync. Totally survival. Totally not, well, you'll see. She rolled her eyes but hid a smirk. Fine. Coordination for survival. Nothing else. Not my fault if the jungle is pervy. He laughed softly. They're sensitive. You'll get used to it. Trust me. The shelter seemed to pulse with quiet amusement, furniture flexing gently, roots shifting, fruit humming in soft tones. Every minor misstep, every careful breath, every glance exchanged, was measured by the jungle as if it were a watchful parent, strict, judgmental, and slightly mischievous. She muttered under her breath, I came here to die. Instead, I have a jungle with opinions, interactive fruit, and a sarcastic guide. Exactly, he said, grinning. Welcome to surviving the forbidden planet. Total chaos. Total amusement. Total, not what you expected. A vine shifted around her wrist again, lightly pressing. She yanked free, glaring at him. Really? Totally chaos. Totally. He gestured to the glowing ceiling of roots. And, apparently, education. You're learning faster than expected. Humans adapt. That's the fun part. Her pulse raced slightly from the absurdity and proximity, and she realized, grudgingly, that survival might actually be entertaining. The jungle, the fruit, the furniture, the vines, even him, they all combined into a ridiculous ecosystem of rules, responses, and subtle teasing. She exhaled, suppressing a laugh. All right, let's see what other lessons this planet has. But I swear, one more interactive fruit, and I'm leaving. He smirked. Not possible. You're too interesting. And the planet thinks you're worth keeping around. She groaned but couldn't stop a small grin. The vines seemed to nod in agreement. And somewhere deep in the shelter, a fruit hummed approvingly. The root blocking the exit shivered like it knew she was frustrated. She stared at it, hands on her hips. Seriously? Now the jungle's gatekeeping me? He grinned. Minor inconvenience. Emotional alignment required. Step 1, honesty. Step 2, cooperation. Step 3, breathe slowly and trust me. She groaned, glaring. Breathe slowly? After months of your interactive jungle lessons, you think I haven't mastered that yet? Not mastered, he said, eyebrow twitching, perfected. And the planet wants perfection. She muttered under her breath. Perfected for what, torture? He leaned closer, voice low. Depends how you define it. But mostly for survival. And amusement. The root shifted slightly, responding to their rising pulse. A vine looped toward her ankle, then recoiled, like it was testing her composure. She stepped forward, slow, deliberate, keeping her heartbeat in check. He mirrored her, slow, steady, matching perfectly. The ground softened, the vines withdrew, and a low hum vibrated through the shelter as if the planet approved. "Congratulations," he said, smirking. "You passed the first test." She muttered, "Passed the first test? There are more?" "Always more," he said. "The jungle enjoys a challenge. But it likes humans more than any other species. That's your edge." She frowned. "Our edge? Against a planet?" He shrugged. "Humans adapt. Quick thinking, bold ideas, unexpected, improvisation." He winked. "And occasionally charm." She rolled her eyes. "Charm, huh? Not exactly part of my skill set." "Yet," he corrected. "The planet is teaching you. You're improving." She groaned, but a reluctant grin tugged at her lips. "Fine. But only because I don't want the vines tickling me to death." They walked together, the path opening gradually as their steps synced, the vines retracting politely, leaves lifting to clear the way. Every subtle movement, every heartbeat, every glance shared was measured by the planet, and each response nudged them closer, not in a romantic sense, she reminded herself, but in a survival coordination sense, mostly. He glanced at her, smirk softening. "See? The jungle ship's teamwork." "I see it," she muttered, suppressing a laugh. "I also see it overreacting like an overbearing mother." "Exactly," he said. "It notices tension, excitement, curiosity, and reacts accordingly. Everything here has an opinion." They reached a small clearing where the vines parted completely. A soft glow emanated from the soil, pulsing gently. "Final test," he said, voice low. "Emotional alignment, trust, and subtle cooperation." She raised an eyebrow. "Subtle cooperation? That's what exactly?" He shrugged, lips twitching. "You'll see. Just stay calm and follow my lead. Don't overthink it." They walked forward in silence, breathing synchronized. Leaves brushed lightly against them, humming softly. Roots shifted beneath their feet. The jungle seemed aware of every microreaction, every sigh, every flinch. She felt the absurdity of it, the comedy, the ridiculousness, and yet there was a strange satisfaction in navigating it, mastering it. The path opened fully as their rhythm aligned, the ground pulsing softly underfoot. A vine curled gently around her wrist, not restraining, just nudging. She flexed her fingers and realized she had to trust the jungle as much as she trusted him. "You're really going with this," he said, voice amused. "Don't tempt me," she muttered, smirking. "I'll trip over a root just to prove a point." He laughed softly. "Fine. But the planet might not find that funny." She glanced down. The root beneath her feet quivered lightly, almost like a playful warning. She straightened, keeping her breathing even. The vines and plants subtly retracted, giving them a clear path forward. He grinned. "See? Humans adapt. We're better than the planet expected. Better than anyone expected." She blinked. "Better than anyone expected, including ourselves, apparently." They moved forward, step by step, the jungle humming in quiet satisfaction. The vines shifted, curling in approval, leaves brushing their arms as if celebrating. Even the fruit seemed to vibrate softly, approving their teamwork. The absurdity was tangible, but it worked. Survival had become almost enjoyable. She glanced at him, finally letting a small smirk escape. "I came here to die. Instead, I got tutoring, a jungle with a personality, and a sarcastic survival partner." He chuckled, glancing at her. "Mostly harmless," he said. "Except for the occasional surprise lessons." She groaned. "Mostly harmless, sure. I'll keep that in mind when a vine grabs my ankle again." He winked. "It will. And you'll survive. That's the point." The path widened into an open glade bathed in bioluminescent glow. The jungle seemed content, humming and vibrating softly, approving every heartbeat, every shared glance. She exhaled, realizing the vines, roots, and plants had become allies rather than obstacles. "Final verdict," he said quietly. "The planet likes humans. It likes teamwork. It likes adaptability. And apparently it likes us together. She raised an eyebrow. Together? Don't. I mean. He smiled. Don't worry. Mostly survival. Mostly cooperation. Totally manageable. You'll see. A vine twined gently around her shoulders, as if nudging her to keep moving forward. She yelped slightly, then caught herself, realizing the gesture was protective rather than threatening. The jungle opened a clear path ahead. Roots parted, vines lifted, leaves shimmered. It was approval, acknowledgement, and subtle celebration all at once. She exhaled, a reluctant grin forming. I came here to die. Instead, I survived. And the jungle actually likes me. He smirked. See? Humans adapt. Bold, clever, slightly ridiculous, and occasionally entertaining. That's why we're still here. She glanced around at the pulsating leaves, the humming vines, and the quivering roots. Somehow, it felt almost like a handshake, a welcome, a promise of continued chaos, but manageable chaos. She exhaled, finally relaxed. Left to die. Sure. But apparently I found someone very alive. And an entire planet rooting for us, mostly. He laughed softly. Mostly. And somewhere deep in the glowing foliage, the vines curled and pulsed in quiet approval, humming a low, approving note as if the forbidden world itself had decided to keep them alive, for now, at least.